and I know many of you out there already know that and can speak to this as well, is that interpersonal communication will never be old-fashioned. And I'll just give you a real quick anecdote. I had a webmaster. I'm the owner of Inspire Magazine, which is a national magazine, and I had a webmaster who was a student at a university in the city where I was teaching, and I won't say the university, I don't want to put that out there like that, but he's very good. I mean, he's excellent. And I had gotten him probably about $45,000 in accounts of other companies and people that I know that wanted to utilize his services, but he was into this internet and into the social media movement so much that he was not communicating with them interpersonally. And some people, they're not interested in getting a text. When they're spending their money, they want to talk to you to see what the progress is. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They want to talk to you to see what the progress is. He ended up losing about 70% of those accounts because he failed to communicate with people. So when you talk about being old school, when you talk about the interpersonal communication, that is extremely critical. So I just want to kind of put that out there. I think the internet is a wonderful tool. I think social media is great. It makes us communicate, as we heard, in other ways, but at the same time, picking up that phone can make a world of difference. At this time, I want to just direct you to some instructions that I just received. Unfortunately, we do not have a cordless mic like we had hoped. So that means that we're going to assert ourselves like we know how to do. And if you have a question, feel free to come up here and you can kind of line up on the side. If the line gets a little long, you can line up on the sides. But feel free to just start coming up with your questions, because we're going to keep this informal and we're going to kind of be all over the place. I'll pose another question, and then to see if this might spark some other questions, and anyone, if not all of the panelists, can ask that question, answer that question. The other question that I would have is, in the African American community in particular, and I really hesitate saying the African American community because I'm not convinced anymore if there is an African American community. I'm not thoroughly convinced of that anymore. I think that we have multiple communities within our community, because we all know that we're not monolithic, that we're not of one mind, one body, and so on. We never have been. But generally speaking, in the African American community, those who tend to be quote unquote successful, whatever that means, but in American society that means that if you have a house on a hill, have a white picket fence, have a dog named Spot, you know, love apple pie and American baseball, and you're making a, you know, and I always ask, well, what if you don't like apple pie? What if you like sweet potato pie? What if you don't have a dog named Spot? What if you have a dog named Malik? What if your house doesn't sit on the hill? What if it sits on flat land? You know, what if you don't like American baseball? What if you happen to like tennis? So where do you fit in this thing called the American dream? But in our community, it is often thought, if not spoken often, that if you are successful, that you have sold out your community. That you have sold out the community, meaning that you don't know what it means to be black any longer. And I know that many of you can speak to that. So my question is, what is it to be successful as an African American male today? What does that mean? What does that look like? Because it looked differently during the Civil Rights Movement, and it looked differently from the 80s and the 90s. And now, as we're approaching 2012, those things are looking differently. What does it mean to be successful as an African American man? Anyone can jump in.
I'm rolling. Success to me is that no matter what I have, if I can't help somebody else, it doesn't mean anything. I have two sons, 20 and 10, and if I'm not a good role model for them, and they act as crazy as I'm acting, then I'm not being successful. It's not about money, it's not about companies, it's about if I can help somebody else. Monday you have a career fair. You all can come by my booth, and if I don't have a job for you, I'll walk you to another booth that may have a job for you. My goal is to make sure that you all have jobs. And it doesn't matter if you work for Walmart, you can work for anybody else. Just get a job, take advantage of being here. That's the success, is that we've helped somebody else. The minute we don't help somebody else, well, I'm failing. And I've learned more from my failures than I have from the successes that I've had. So,
okay. I'll expand on what he said. I would just say personal responsibility is in addition to what he said. So definitely you should be taking care of others, but make sure that you take care of yourself. You're very responsible. I think sometimes in the world of motivational speakers and everyone wants to live their dreams, sometimes they don't take advantage of being responsible and being accountable for what they need to do. And sometimes, you know, I think to some of my family members, they're trying to realize their dreams so much that they're not being responsible and taking care of their financial situation, their health, and other things. So that's what I would say to be successful, is really being true to yourself and being responsible as well as taking care of others.
And I would dovetail and say that success is that 10,000 square foot home, the fat Benz, you know. No, but all kidding aside, but truly success, to me, is when folks who are talking about you when you're not there in a positive light. And they talk about you, they want to be around you and understand what you're doing, and they check in with you and say, hey, you know, what have you been up to? I hear you're doing well. To me, it's success. You don't even have to talk about success. Success breeds itself, and folks will talk about you if you're successful. So to me, it's not about you talking about success, it's about others talking about you.
Okay. Great, thanks. My brother? And please state your name and your university or college.
Good afternoon, and thank you once more for the presentation. I'm Loic Anago from Grambling State University. I hail from Cameroon, West Africa. And one of the things I keep hearing in different programs, networking events, is to build that connections beyond the social media. On several occasions, I've tried to reach out to some of the professionals or executives, which sometimes is very difficult. You cannot really plug out someone's email from the website, or everyone to give you a business card, you know, you have to go through a process to maybe pass through the secretary or some HR manager. So sometimes it can get discouraging. So what's your advice?
Good question. Very good question. Thank you, brother. Being the first. Before we answer that, because you were the first, you know, it's something about being the first, brothers.
We have a nice leather binder from Booz Allen on behalf of Booz Allen for the first person to come up.
Anyone like to take it?
You know, I'll tell you that's a great question, and I want to be very clear about this because I hear a different variation on that theme a lot, because a lot of people come to my foundation and to my office and to me asking for help in different ways. And I'll meet them on the street and I'll be, Hill Harper, you know, I wrote a letter to your foundation, I needed money for college, and now I'm out of school, you know, and this and that, and you know, and they say I didn't get back to them, or I didn't hit them back, you know, whatever the case may be. Ultimately, it's not the person's responsibility that you're reaching out to connect back with you. You have to give them a reason to connect back with you. I'm all about incentives. So if you're sending out letters and emails and someone's not responding, then maybe take a look at the letter or the email and the content and analyze why you're not writing a letter or an email that's compelling enough to make them want to respond to you. What are you not offering? Because ultimately, all of us, we have human nature. And if we believe, if we're given a compelling reason to use that valuable commodity of time to get back to you or reach back to you, then we'll do that. Also, know this, as an actor, I experience rejection continuously. It's literally a career of rejection. And so out of 99 times I go to meet on something, I get rejected. And it's that one time that you get the role, and it's literally, that's your career, is being rejected. So I'm intimately aware of how that feels and what it's about. But at the end of the day, if it's in your heart or your passion to do what you're doing, then you keep knocking up against the door. And reach out, send another email tomorrow, send 2 more the next day, 10 more the next day, make a phone call, do these things. Don't become a stalker. But you can do these things in an effective way, in a compelling way, that's not like everyone else, to make yourself stand out. And ultimately, I believe, and I truly believe, you will connect with the people that are meant to be on your board of directors. Those will be the people that you ultimately attract. The folks that aren't getting back to you or you're not connecting with, they wouldn't have helped you in anyway. Does that make sense?
Just want to add one other thing. I read an article one time, and you've probably heard this saying before, it's not who you know, it's how you're known to them. And so when I really want to meet someone just at a tactical level, what I do, rather than reach out to them directly, I try to see if I can connect the dots. And if is there someone I know or someone that they know who can actually give me that intro to that person. So when I follow up with a phone call, it's a more meaningful connection. So they'll say, oh wow, I remember Gary. I got introduced to them by Hill. So therefore, let me follow up with them just to see what he wants. So that's a strategy that has worked for me when I really want to get to someone I absolutely do not have a relationship with.
So what we'll do, and thank you, fellows, so that what we'll do, because the line is long and your questions are perhaps more important than perhaps some of our collective responses. So we want to do that. So I'm going to ask each panel, each question, the person asking the question, to have just one panelist ask that question. But if you have something burning that you want to add, please do so. Sure. But only if it's burning.
Sure.
Okay.